Today, I want to talk about a new Metroidvania game that I found, which looks really cool based on the Kickstarter video that they've put together. Now, I know you're saying, wait a minute, but what does this have to do with Path of Exile or action RPGs? And on the surface, maybe not too much. But if you dive in just a little bit, there's a lot more in common with this game and Path of Exile than it at first might appear. For example, both are heavily inspired by and influenced by both The Witcher 3 and Dark Souls, two huge inspirations behind a lot of Path of Exile's more recent design. So today I wanted to talk about the Mandragora Kickstarter. Now, a quick disclaimer before I get into it. Kickstarter is always a risk. You're never going to be guaranteed that there's a game, and you're never going to be guaranteed to get the game that you thought you would. So if instead you want to support the developers completely for free because you find what's going on in this video really cool and either you don't have the money or don't want to risk it on a Kickstarter, then be sure to go over to their Steam page, which will be down in the description below, and wishlist the game. Completely free, and it helps the devs out a lot. So now, let's take a look at the Kickstarter trailer for Mandragora. So a traversal system of some sort. Looks like the enemies aren't super fast. Pretty cool boss animation. Lots of death. If you're playing any game inspired by Dark Souls, you're gonna die a lot. And so far, that was pretty obvious. One thing I like is the backgrounds. They look very nice, almost hand-painted, hand-drawn look. I also like how, unlike Bloodstained Ritual of a Night, another Metroidvania game that I thought I'd like a lot, and I kind of liked parts of, but didn't ultimately end up liking that much. The monsters in that game really stood out to me. The models felt like they were very jarring because they're super smooth looking and very CG-ish. The backgrounds were very painted, hand-drawn looking. I like how so far there isn't that huge contrast here. The models blend much better into the art style of the background.
Mandragora began as a dream. One that was simple but ambitious, to take the classic Metroidvania recipe and combine it with unique features that we loved in other titles in a variety of very different genres. When we played the original Castlevania games, we loved exploration. When we played with Dark Souls, we loved combat. With The Witcher 3, we loved the emotional storytelling. In classic RPGs, we loved the character development. And with Ori and the Will of the Wisps, we loved the art style. They each gave us not only beloved gaming experiences, but invaluable inspiration for our game, Mandragora.
Okay, so just to cut that short for a moment, Ori and the Blind Forest is my favorite Metroidvania game ever. I always loved just how fluid and how smooth it felt. In a lot of ways, when I'm playing any other Metroidvania now, I almost feel clunky and slow with the way the abilities build up over the first few levels. With Ori, you're a super small sprite, and so you're very fast. And on top of being very fast and having this super small sprite hitbox, it's often very easy for you to use your early abilities in a way that feels supernatural, to the point where you almost feel like you're in the endgame of a Metroidvania right from day one, and I'd love to see more games inspired by Ori that manage to capture that. The closest is a game called Afterimage, which I actually talked about on my second channel. A video will be in the card right now.
The first idea for Mandragora was born all the way back in 2016 during a trip to Ireland. We were instantly inspired by the dark fantasy aesthetic of the country and its folklore.
I've never been to Ireland, but I do very much like Irish folklore, especially fairy tales. So who knows, maybe I will also go there someday and be inspired in some way as well.
After the trip, we made a short demonstration of our idea of a brutal side-scroller in a dark and hopeless universe, and it captured the imagination of several other game makers at our studio. Now we're joined by a team of over 25 passionate game makers dedicated to developing Mandragora.
So this is a really good sign in terms of any sort of Kickstarter project. They're working in an established game studio. They've worked on other titles before, clearly, and furthermore, it's a team of 25 people. A game like this being made by 25 people seems like a very realistic task. Sometimes you'll see, well, we're 3 guys in a basement with a budget of $20,000 and we're going to make the next World of Warcraft. And that's just completely unrealistic. Don't get me wrong. two of my favorite games ever. RuneScape was founded by two brothers. Path of Exile, three guys in a garage. It can absolutely happen, but it doesn't happen overnight, and it feels like it's getting harder and harder and harder for those amazing, huge success stories. And even then, the amount of work that it's taken to get Path of Exile or RuneScape from what they were in their first iteration to what they are now is just massive. It's thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of hours from hundreds of people.
In Mandragora, you'll experience challenging but rewarding side-scrolling action. The game incorporates many classic RPG elements, as well as Souls-like action and Metroidvania-style exploration. The world within Mandragora is known to many of its inhabitants as Feldun. Here, you'll travel through a wide, interconnected world full of unique locations and enter the dark realm of entropy through tears in the fabric of reality.
So, something else that I really like is mashups of genres. I didn't know how much I would love a shop sim meets classic RPG until I played Moonlighter. And if you want to know my experiences with Moonlighter, then check out the video in the card right now. But if you're wondering, well, is this going to be at all PoE-like? Don't worry, we're getting to the point where I mention exactly how PoE-like this game could very well be, because there's something quite unique that they're going to talk about in just a minute.
Each enemy you'll encounter will have a specific set of offensive and defensive abilities that will often make for unique and deadly combos, like the Striga's brutal lacerate and nimble dodge, or the vampire assassin's sneaky shadow step and poisonous dagger throw. Learning the pattern of these combos will help you greatly in defeating these monstrosities.
I also like how smooth and fluid all the animations seem so far. It doesn't seem like the sort of usual jank that I've seen with a lot of other Kickstarter projects, where the animations are very stiff and they're only a few frames. These are really responsive, and I also hope what that means is the hitboxes are equally responsive, where instead of a sword strike being just a cone of damage in a direction, something seen in a lot of games, we're going to see something where the damage occurs along the arc of the sword at every single point. After that was added to, say, Path of Exile and a lot of other more modern games, I've always found it makes the combat feel that much more realistic to have those accurate hitboxes tracked to your weapons. I very much like the smoothness of enemy motion that I'm seeing here. They don't seem all that fast, not so fast that it's a purely reflexes game. You're probably going to be learning patterns a lot and knowing when to dodge, which I also quite like, especially when it comes to single player games. I like being able to learn a game and feel like I've mastered it.
That was some tough bastard.
Developing your character the way you want to play it is one of the most rewarding aspects of classic RPGs. We want to make Mandragora a similarly deep and rewarding experience. Character development in Mandragora consists of several different interconnected layers that form a rich and complex system. If you like raw physical strength, massive shields, or brutal two-handed weapons, play as a Vanguard. If you are looking for a character that can master even the dark energies of entropy, pick the Spellbinder, a mysterious magic user who can wreak havoc from long distances.
And this is really different from at least all of the Metroidvanias that I've played. Most of them don't really offer you super deep character customization. It's, well, you have different weapons, and those weapons can feel pretty awesome. But you're generally still going to be an attack-based character with a couple of limited spells as sort of backups or supports. The game that I think had the best spell system out of any Metroidvania I've played would actually be Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Overall, I didn't enjoy the game as a whole. I ended up dropping it about halfway through, but I did appreciate the spell system, and it felt much more fleshed out than a lot of other titles.
If you prefer a sneakier approach, you can choose to play as a Larcenist, a quick and agile character in light armor that uses poisons and combo attacks to overcome their foes. There is also the Heretic, a fierce mid-range warrior who combines fire magic with one-handed maces. And as part of this Kickstarter...
So I could be wrong here, but it almost looks like that fire is igniting enemies. And if there's ignite ailments based on the fire, maybe a shock kind of ailment based on the lightning, that is a really awesome additional effect. Could just be environmental though.
Campaign, we'd love to be able to add more classes to Mandragora, like the Warden, a druid-like spellcaster warrior who fights with one-handed weapons and wide rays, using the power of nature to defeat their enemies. As your character levels up, you will get access to a passive talent tree. Here you can spend talent points.
Remember how I said there's an element that's very Path of Exile? That's right, they have a Path of Exile style skill tree. I know there's going to be some people that just look at this and go, oh god, too much, scary. Don't worry, it starts small, and you can go from there. But if you're playing PoE for any amount of time, you probably already know that. Personally, my reaction to the PoE skill tree when I first saw it was, this is amazing, I can do whatever I want. And the ability to use passives to guide your build, to almost add true customization, is something that's always really, really fun. Now, I know some people will optimize the fun out of it. They'll go for, all right, what build is the best? My hope is that you won't need the best build to beat the game. In fact, there's a lot of very 6 out of 10 builds that can do tier 16 maps just fine. Hopefully they'll be the same in Mandragora.
Some basic attributes such as knowledge, strength or endurance, as well as some unique talents which can increase your power, give you new ways to fight, or even change your playstyle completely. And although each of the starting classes will have their own separate part of the talent tree, these parts will be connected to each other, so you will be able to move anywhere on the tree freely and even create mixed classes. And
this is also really good because then you're not limited to just the classes you start with. You can go, all right, I have 200 weapons in one hand and then magic in the other. Maybe you use that black hole skill to lock things in place so you can stab them in the back. Or maybe you set everything on fire, then stealth away and blast it from a distance.
That combines their divine powers with forbidden fire magic to purge evil from the face of the earth. A battle mage in heavy armor with magically enhanced robust battle hammer in their hands. This will all be possible in Mandragora.
Your character will go on a dangerous journey to find answers that may save the dying world of Feldu. Answers that will change our hero forever. Entropy, a mysterious and deadly substance, is ravaging the world they once knew, spreading through tears that appear in the fabric of reality.
This reminds me of Source and Sorcery from the Divinity series. Also the rifts from Dragon Age. I don't know if there's any actual relation there or if it just happens to look similar. I believe Dragon Age was heavily inspired by Irish mythology, so that could be a connection. I'm not really sure where Larian got a lot of their inspirations in terms of the Divinity series.
After acquiring the legendary Witch Lantern, you will be able to enter its dark realm and come face to face with the terrifying beasts residing there. As you travel both inside and outside of Entropy, you'll take on dangerous quests, meet many NPCs both kind and cruel, and be forced to make impossible decisions that will affect the fate of this withering world.
I very much like it when games force you to make hard choices. Things like The Witcher 3, where you decide the Bloody Baron's fate. Or games like Frostpunk, where there's really no good decision, and sometimes the best decision is to do the worst thing possible in a given situation. At least worst, morally speaking. It usually creates an easy road and a hard road, where you can make a bunch of easy choices and not think about it too much. But if you go through the hard path of really weighing your choices, it feels rewarding by the end. And as Geralt once said, when forced to choose between the lesser of two evils, I would choose neither.
Gameplay comes first, we know that well. With great gameplay, the game itself can be great, but with the addition of unique, memorable visuals, the game can become truly whole. That is why we try to find a visual style that makes Mandragora both easily recognizable and pleasing to the eye.
I think they've done a very good job of that. It doesn't look like any other game specifically, although I guess it does kind of remind me a little bit of Hollow Knight in a very good way. And I know they're inspired by Ori. I think I can see it in the way a lot of the plants are curved and very fluid in their motion. The armor, the character design of the monsters feel very much like something out of Dark Souls to me, because Ori used those really vibrant colors for all the dangerous things, whereas here it's almost a somewhat pastel world in a lot of ways. Then you, the character, are the bright thing, which also should make it very easy to keep track of where you are.
And that is also why we've put a lot of effort into animating the game's characters in spectacular ways. We want to make sure that the Mandragora experience will be a full experience.
Those animations are honestly very impressive for an indie game. I'm not used to seeing that, but I guess with the new Unreal Engine and new tools in general, we're going to see more and more of it, which is awesome. Because it's that little stuff Touches like watching the musculature of the throat move as the dragon screams that make you feel like you're really there and you're in a world, and for just the barest of moments, you can forget that you're playing a video game.
Mandragora is powered by the Unreal Engine. This gives our game designers the tools and flexibility to create and test features on the fly without the help of software engineers, who in turn can focus on polishing the game's complex systems, such as character development, AI, and enemy pathfinding.
And this is something that's been talked about a lot, especially with Unreal Engine 5, making systems more available to small teams so that they don't need the big overhead of a large studio to make something great. Sure, the scope will have to be smaller. You're probably not making the next World of Warcraft, especially not the next World of Warcraft in 2022. Though I'm also not sure who would want to make the next World of Warcraft in 2022. I think at this point people would be making the next Final Fantasy XIV. I very much like everything I've seen so far in terms of the game. I'd very much be happy to give it a try. Maybe there'll be a demo in the near future, or if the developers happen to see this video, and if you guys want me to check out your game, hit me up. I would be more than happy to.
Even though Mandragora is still in development, we've already been lucky enough to find many awesome people to join us along the way, and we're so grateful for our growing community. The feedback we received on social media so far has been absolutely wonderful on platforms like Discord, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter, where we're almost 10,000 strong. Thank you again to everyone who has been a part of the journey so far. There have been so many kind, encouraging, and often hilariously creative comments. We've read and loved them all.
And here we've got a shot of the team, and yeah, they've got a solid number of people for starting out a project. It's good to see that there's already a community building behind the game. I'm sure not all of the feedback that they've gotten is completely useful. I know from my own comments, sometimes there are things that are both less than helpful and also less than what you want to read first thing in the morning when you go to see how your newest video did. But it's good to see that overall there is a very supportive community because this project looks awesome. I very much hope that it becomes a great game.
The team behind the game and everything we've talked about so far is Primal Game Studio, an independent development studio we founded in Budapest, Hungary. Since our foundation in 2012, we become home to a group of developers and an average individual experience in the games industry of over 14 years and over 30 shipped titles combined. In our earlier years,
this is also a really good sign. 30 shipped titles combined means a lot of people have experience making things. I would assume they have a very experienced project manager. I haven't really looked into this studio too much, but again, if you're looking for signs that a Kickstarter is very likely to succeed, signs that, okay, this is absolutely worth checking out, these are, again, very, very good signs from my experience.
we mainly took on contract work and were lucky enough to work in exciting projects like products in the League of Legends universe for Riot Games. Then, when the time came in 2018, we started to bring our own ideas to life. We are now dedicated to Mandragora, our flagship title, and Around, a hand-drawn adventure game, both of which are Epic Mega Grants recipients. We work very hard to keep our studio's independence and stay.
I could very much see a hand-drawn adventure game fitting with a lot of the style. I mean, I mentioned earlier in the video that the hand-drawn backgrounds looked really, really good. The Epic Mega Grant is something that has been helping a lot of small studios get off the ground. Tencent has also been doing some of that. Embracer Group has also been doing some of that. It is a very exciting time to be a small game developer because there's so many projects and so much funding out there that there's going to be things which 10 years ago would never have been a game, not because it wasn't a great idea, not because there weren't good people behind it, but just they couldn't get the funds together. And now, more and more, we're seeing it actually work out.
Stay away from outside pressures that may detract from our care and dedication to our games.
So, by now you might be wondering, why a Kickstarter? As a growing independent studio with big dreams for our future, we've actually always planned to have a Kickstarter, right from day one. We've been lucky enough to find many great partners already who are all providing invaluable support while still encouraging and respecting our independence. However, we always knew that we'd need to work with multiple supporters to make Mandragora happen, which is why we turned to Kickstarter. Of course, the clue is in the name. The funding is an important aspect of a crowdfunding campaign. All the funds raised here will go directly to Mandragora and will be spent on hiring new talents to grow our development team, working on additional game features, and of course, providing promised rewards to all our generous backers. But a crowdfunding campaign is about so much more than that.
Crowdfunding is also a great way to get the word out about your game. Without the Kickstarter campaign, there's a very good chance that this video wouldn't have come up in my recommended feed, and I wouldn't have heard about it at all. Personally, I would very much have preferred if they had some sort of working demo that you could play on Steam as of a time of release, so it's not just a Kickstarter campaign, but you could get a little bit of a feel for the game. Even so, I think this has definitely helped to get the word out quite a lot more than just hoping and working with marketing, which would come in probably later once the game's actually a little bit more feature complete. So Kickstarter has been very successful. I mean, just look at Star Citizen. Not that it's released yet, but Kickstarter has been very effective in getting the word out on what Star Citizen is. Or more recently, two games in fact, that have released, Pathfinder Kingmaker and Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, got most of their notoriety through Kickstarter. And I haven't played either one, although I have been meaning to play Wrath of the Righteous, because I've heard very good things about that one in particular. Kingmaker, from what I heard, got a little bit of a rough start, but sorted out the rough edges and is now an excellent game.
One of the reasons we're so excited to be having a Kickstarter is that it's one of the best ways we can really involve our community. We want to have you along with us for the ride, and with your feedback, make the game even better. Your involvement is also incredibly important in showing others just how many people believe in Mandragora. Having a successful Kickstarter campaign is a great way for us to prove to current and potential studio investors that there's a real hunger for these kinds of quality AA titles from independent studios.
The lighting effects look really nice. I realize this is probably just a rendered scene, but even so, they've done a lot of very nice vertical slices to show off just a little bit of what the game will ultimately look like. Very happy with what I've seen so far. This is definitely something that I'm going to be watching in the future, and something that it's quite likely you will see some gameplay either here or my second channel. So if that interests you, get subscribed.
It helps them commit to supporting our dreams in the long term because they can see how much you believe in our work. That's why we came to Kickstarter, to humbly ask for your support. With your help, we can make Mandragora the absolute best it can be. We hope.
And so that is the Kickstarter campaign for Mandragora. If you want to support the Kickstarter for yourself, the link will be down below. On the other hand, if you want to wishlist it on Steam, that will also be down below. Wishlisting is completely free and does help out the game developer. I very much like the idea of a Metroidvania game that's more in the Dark Souls genre and also draws on things like Path of Exile style character customization, since the customization in Path of Exile is some of the best of any game out there, ARPG or not. Of course, because my favorite game in terms of the Metroidvania genre is the Ori series, hopefully there's also going to be some gameplay inspiration, and it plays just as smoothly and fluidly as Ori does. Though, ultimately, if that doesn't work out, I can definitely see why, since the Dark Souls genre is not really known for fluid gameplay. It's good, but it's much more of a clunky, heavy tactical feel, rather than everything being almost light and effortless. We'll have to see, though. For now, that's my thoughts on Mandragora. If there's any other games, possibly on Kickstarter or elsewhere, that you want me to check out their trailer or their launch and give some thoughts, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. A special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. Your support helps keep me independent and allows me to turn down things like sketchy mobile game sponsorships. You can do so for as low as $1 a month over on Patreon, or if you want to support me completely for free, then you can join the community by hopping into my Discord, link below. If you want more content, check out my second channel, 10 Gaming Thoughts. It's a place that I use to review games, ramble my way through video essays, and a lot more. Or of course, you can just click the suggested video in the card right now. I hope you learned something today, and maybe I'll see you again sometime soon.